Good afternoon, and welcome to today's IndustryWeek webcast, Preparing for the Post-COVID-19 Pandemic Maintenance Operations Thaw, sponsored by Dude Solutions. My name is Adrienne Selko, and I'm Senior Editor with IndustryWeek. Before we begin, let me explain how you can participate in today's presentation. First, at any time, if you have any audio difficulties or the slides are not advancing, simply hit your F5 key to refresh your webcast console. If you have any technical difficulties during today's session, please press the Help button to receive assistance in solving common issues. This webinar technology allows you to resize the presentation by clicking the Maximize icon or by dragging the lower right corner to enlarge the window. We welcome your questions during today's event. To submit your question, simply type it into the Q&A window on the left side of your screen and hit the Submit button. We'll be answering as many questions as possible during the Q&A session that will follow the main presentation, but feel free to send in your questions at any time. Also be aware today's session is being recorded and will be available on the IndustryWeek website within the next week for you to review. You'll be notified by email when the archive is available. On your console, the Dude Solutions logo is hot linked. If you want to visit their website during the webcast, you can click on the logo and a new window will open. It will not take you out of the webinar. I'd like to introduce today's speaker. We have today Paul LaChance, who is the Senior Manufacturing Advisor for Dude Solutions. Paul has spent his entire career devoted to optimizing maintenance teams by enabling data-driven decisions and actionable insights. He wrote his first CMMS system in 2004 and has since spent his professional career designing and directing CMMS and EAM systems. He is a regular speaker at national trade shows, has been featured at IMTS, FabTech, and SMRP, as well as several industry magazines. He currently serves as a Senior Manufacturing Advisor for Dude Solutions. And with that, Paul, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Adrienne. It's an honor to be here presenting to all of you today. There we go. I'm sorry, my screens are not. There we go. Preparing for the COVID-19 Pandemic Maintenance Operations Thaw. So today's agenda, start off by just talking a bit about what we've learned. It's been an amazing and terrible and crazy and disruptive time. What have we learned? What are our short, mid, and long-term plans? And we'll build up to what's shaping up to be this, quote, new normal. I'm going to start off with a poll. If you could please just take a moment to answer this. Which best represents your organization currently? How have your maintenance operations how have they been impacted by COVID-19? It kind of goes from a range. You're busier than ever, continuing business as usual. Maybe you're limited to only essential personnel. You maybe been totally suspended in your operations for the time being, or maybe there's been just virtually no impact whatsoever. If you could please take a moment to answer that question, it's going to help us in our research and analysis. So I'm going to give everybody another 10 seconds or so to answer that. All right, looks like there's still a couple coming in, so go ahead and that finish. All right, I'm going to go ahead and show the results. So, good to see that some people are busier than ever. That's great. I know that brings a new set of challenges. And on the other end of the spectrum, there are some of us on the call today who are suspended. So we've got that wide range here of what's going on. So start with the next slide here, industry impact. What have we learned? Number of polls, and there's all kinds of polls that have been done around manufacturers, and it's good news, bad news. Let's start with the challenges here. The two polls, the one on the left here is the National Association of Manufacturers, 78+% anticipated financial impact. More than half of us are anticipating a change in operations, and a big chunk of us, almost a third, more than a third, are facing supply chain disruptions. The poll on the right came from PwC, very reputable consulting firm, polling their manufacturing clients and industry. It's very, very similar data, financial impact, recession, a lot of concerns, a lot of questions. And it's been a very disruptive process operationally. I think that's pretty clear to everybody. We're seeing it with our own clients as well. We almost immediately saw a spike in COVID-19 related work orders that happened when the pandemic first became to the point where we're starting to see plant shutdowns and so forth. Major spike. On the right-hand side, looking at trends of data moving towards the first quarter of 2020, that's when the pandemic was really starting to take hold. We saw a decrease in overall work orders, and that's probably represented by decrease in manufacturing production and output, and also at the same time a big increase in, say, sanitization related COVID-19 related work orders. So kind of expected, but whether you're looking at national polls to manufacturers in general, or we're looking very specifically at maintenance operations, the COVID-19 impact is significant. So I'm kind of an eternal optimist. It's a good news, bad news situation, and where there is bad news, I really look at it as an opportunity where we can change and improve the way we work. And some main takeaways, which we'll get into with this, is the concept of working from anywhere. I mean, whoever would have thought manufacturers would be legitimately having a percentage of their team working from their home and still positively impacting their operations. The concept of lean. Everybody is forced to be lean, do more with less. And that isn't always when times are tough, like in a pandemic, but when times are good, it's very good to operate lean. It's also giving us a jump start on what we call the changing workforce. The changing workforce is a topic that I've been studying quite a bit and lecturing on quite a bit over the past 6 to 12 months. And it's just kind of coincidence that this pandemic is causing us to refocus on this changing workforce because some of the messages are the same. 50% of facilities personnel are set to retire in the next 10 years. So half of your operations, folks, and this isn't just me speaking, this is statistics. This is the baby boomers are getting to the age where they're all starting to retire. There's an amazing amount of knowledge in these veteran teams' heads. We need to document their legacy. And so unfortunately, many of these older members of our team, very valued members of our team, can't come into the plant. They might be at greater risk. So we're forced to operate in many cases without them physically by our side. It's so important that we capture what they know. And a CMMS, a computerized maintenance management system, is a great way to capture. How do you do those PMs? How do you fix those broken assets? It's also a situation where we need to construct training programs and mentorship to train the next generation of workers. They're getting, if you're one of those situations where you have your veteran team can't come in because they are at risk to COVID-19, those younger generation are having to learn pretty darn quick. So mentorship programs will become even more important. And then learning these digital tools, everything from how to use a mobile device to how to use a thermal camera, and the modern technologies that are coming with this changing and aging workforce. It's just interesting to me that we're seeing these needs are being kind of forced on us because of the impact related to COVID-19. But as we learn this stuff and as we get better, it will benefit our operations. So let's start with the short term, and I'm calling this the freeze. Now, not all of you are in a freeze. We saw a very good, healthy percentage of us are busier than ever, given their respective organizations and the industries they follow. And some of us are in the other end of the spectrum, but we're calling this the freeze. So organizing your staff and prioritizing your work, it becomes essential. And I'm going to go ahead, we'll use a COVID-19 response assessment, how it's affecting your operations. I'm going to very broadly lump it into two groups, quote-unquote busy and quote-unquote slow. The busy ones, to use a very generic example, maybe you make PPE, hand sanitizer, you're busier than you've probably ever been. You're on the slow side, maybe you make umbrellas for cruise ships. And I feel terrible for the people who make umbrellas for cruise ships right now, but you're in a different role and you will get back to normal at some point. The way you are, whether you're busy or slow, your use of your maintenance operations and the technology will be different. You've got social distancing impact. You've got all kinds of new duties, PPE related, disinfection, sanitization, and so forth. And then, of course, the work from anywhere. So we're going to go through some examples between these two buckets, starting with busy. So how are you affected if you're busy? Think and be lean and efficient. So we're going to go through some examples about optimizing your work orders management. How are you going to get your jobs done with reduced and essential staff? Social distancing is an impact on it as well. Remember, you're busy, and so now you have these other sort of curveballs that are probably throwing some hiccups. Prioritizing your work becomes essential, both preventive and corrective. Avoiding stockouts, making sure you have the parts you need, and then excellent communication and documentation. Let's go through a couple of examples on these. So prioritizing and optimizing your preventive and your corrective maintenance. Having visibility. That screen there, the top one, is showing you sort of a weekly or a monthly view of your PMs. And be able to show your production people, you still have to get to those PMs. They're even probably more important than ever because downtime will really hurt you. So tight coordination between maintenance operations and production, and having the visibility in those essential PMs that you need to do to be able to provide that information. Prioritization of your work orders, preventive and corrective. If you can train your eyes to the column called calculated criticality, it's kind of on the right-hand side of the screen. I'm going to focus around there. When you're looking at your preventive and your corrective maintenance work orders, so often people will only use priority, my high priority work orders, which is, of course, a good guideline. But you have that situation where there's a work order created for a broken toilet in the break room, and it's called high priority. Well, it is a high priority, but we have other restrooms that can be used. If you look at the criticality of your assets combined with the priority of the work order, the combination of the two can help calculate a calculated criticality. Some will call this a RIME index, R-I-M-E. And at the end of the day, what that does is it allows those really important work orders to bubble to the surface. You're busier than ever. You do not want to have downtime. You're going to have to get to some of these work orders. Make sure you're hitting those ones that are going to hit your operations the worst first. And so you avoid that downtime on those critical assets. So a calculated criticality or RIME index can be very helpful with that. Avoiding stockouts. You do not want to be caught missing that critical spare part when you need it. Preventive maintenance, and even probably more essentially for corrective maintenance, again, all to avoid that dreaded downtime. Know the parts you're low on. Your CMMS system should show you what parts you're low on. You should be able to look at how many parts you have available, how many are reserved, how many are on back order. You should be able to get an email when you're low on parts. Again, having that right spare part when you need it is very essential when you're really busy, especially. Suspend your non-critical PMs. Now, it's extremely rare. I'm a super PM guy. It's extremely rare for me to go in the direction of ever suspending preventive maintenance. But sometimes this is a triage situation. You just cannot get to everything you need to get to. So use your tool, your CMMS tool, to help you identify those PMs you might be able to skip for now so they're not cluttering your to-do list. That can help you be more efficient, maybe even help a little bit with morale with your already overworked maintenance staff trying to keep up with everything. You can, like in this case here, find that one production line or that one part of your operations that's not being used right now and just turn those PMs to inactive. Just make sure you turn those things back on when the time comes. Communicate and document. So often I hear a quote-unquote excuse, and I understand excuses are because these people are super busy, but I didn't have time to close that work order, or I didn't have time to document that it was a, say, COVID-19 related work order, or whatever the situation may be. Upper left-hand corner of this screen right here, your drop-down list for your work orders, you should be able to select work order causes, problem problem and cause codes, work order category, and so forth, you're eventually going to have to come back and show the work you did. And to properly identify those work orders now, even if you're busy, will help you in the long run. Left-hand bottom, have a good visibility to the work that's going on. Know all of your work orders that are open right now, you personally and for your team. What's overdue? What preventive maintenance? Look at it on your mobile device, upper right-hand corner. Have messages. Use the message board in your systems. Put up guidelines and standard operating procedures and updates to the team. Remember, we're able to see these dashboards from anywhere, from our mobile device, from our browser, from home, so you can get that messaging to your team. And then have good KPIs, good charts, hopefully right on your dashboard, so people, your team, your management can see the progress that you're making or areas where you might need to make more progress. So this next section is more around, hey, you're more in a slow mode. And just because you're slow, obviously there's challenges to your organization, but it's a great opportunity as well. So slow, you're in a partial, or even some cases we're hearing complete shutdown for some of your plants. This is an excellent opportunity for you to chip away at your deferred maintenance, your work order backlog. The same way, we've been chipping away at projects around our house. It's a great time for you to get that work done. Suspend standard PMs if not appropriate, and internal assessment, better understanding of your asset effectiveness. So we'll go ahead and go through some examples around what can you get done if your operations are more in a slow mode right now. Inspection and building checks. So, just if you're slow and you're not necessarily using those assets, it's kind of like your car. If you let your car sit for a couple of weeks, the battery's going to run out. You need to start that car. And it's the same thing. You consider building some specialized preventive maintenance routines or one-off corrective maintenance routines to exercise those assets, because eventually you're going to come to this thaw and you're going to need those assets. So those things that can happen when assets sit for too long. Build some of those PMs or those instructions to exercise them. Chip away at your maintenance backlog, your deferred maintenance. Again, it's the same screen I showed earlier with the calculated criticality, because you can let bubble to the surface those open, sort of nagging preventive maintenance routines, corrective maintenance, or those longer-term corrective maintenance routines that you just been trying to get to, and start chipping away at them. But the same way we said earlier, if you're busy, hit the priority ones first. But this is an excellent opportunity for you to chip away at these, because when this thaw, and we're already seeing signs of the thaw starting to does come, just think how much better off you will be. You're going to be able to fire on all cylinders when operations do start to remove. Your assets will be more effective, and that has all kinds of obvious benefits, from producing better products to consuming less energy to extending longer periods of time between possible additional corrective actions. So take advantage of this time to chip away at those work order backlogs. Again, we talked about suspending those PMs, and in this case here, select just that one line or just that one building and deactivate those PMs. Or in the top of that screen, you can do a total shutdown of all PMs. Often that will be done in a plant shutdown, the traditional once a year, once for a week shutdown where you take care of big jobs. So use your CMMS to help manage that. And again, it's demoralizing to see a bunch of preventive maintenance work orders and potentially sending people off on a chore that didn't need to get done when it doesn't need to get done. So try to be efficient there. Just, again, make sure you turn them back on as the thaw is coming. It's also a great time to look at the effectiveness of your operations, of your assets, and of your people. Things like repair versus replace. It's a lot of times these even if you have the reports, and these reports are all one click and you can see the report based on the history of work orders, but it takes a little time to digest this stuff, really sit down and look at this data and make a decision. Should we replace this asset or should we continue to maintain it? There's cost benefits to both sides, but draw on the reports that can help you make these decisions. Here's a really good example. Our asset lifecycle analysis report Two assets listed here, both HVAC related. The air handler unit has a grade of a B, kind of going across that first row there. And it's got a grade of a B. The three colored blocks there, the third one, it's about 5 years older than we thought this asset was going to live. You know, these things have an expected life from the manufacturer, from our experience. In this particular case, it's one of those dinosaur assets that's still kicking, and in our operations, we all have these kinds of assets. But in this case here, this asset's performing pretty well. That's why those two other things say good. The boiler unit, the second row, has a grade of a D. Now, it's a newer asset. It theoretically has expected life. That's why that years left column is in green. However, it's not doing very well. So if we dive into this and we look at these two assets, the air handler unit on the left, the costs over time, and again, this is the older asset, the costs over time have been decreasing. That's a good sign. You know, you want to see costs going down if you can, especially for an older asset. The frequency of failure, the number of days between corrective maintenance work orders, is increasing. Another very positive sign. Again, it's an older asset, but it's doing pretty well. The boiler unit, on the right-hand side of the screen, costs are going up, and the frequency of failure is getting worse. So, you know, when you look at this, and you kind of throw all this in a blender, you see how, you know, maybe you're getting ready to do capital expenditure planning for next year's HVAC budget, or whatever type of assets we're talking about. And you might, without the benefit of these types of these analytics, you might be thinking, wow, we ought to replace that air handler unit. It's a dinosaur. You know, if we're asked, that's probably where we should focus. It's old. The reality is it's the boiler unit you need to look at. You know, is it a lemon? Is it a contractor issue? Does it need more preventive maintenance? Use these analytics, use this information to help you make good repair versus replace, asset effectiveness, budgeting type analysis. Use these analytics to identify the sources of your downtime. Where's your downtime coming from? If you can measure where your downtime's coming from, then you can start to remedy those situations. We all know downtime is a profit killer, and especially when we really have to be thinking more carefully financially in these times we're in right now. But use these analytics to help us, and if you have the time to do it right now, take that time to do this analysis. Working from anywhere is essential when you're busy or slow. Slow, you're probably not in the plant a whole lot, so you're having to do this stuff from anywhere. So technology built on the cloud is really important. Working from anywhere, you know, and mobility, cloud-based software, support social distancing, avoiding sharing computers, things of that nature. Having a mobile device in your hand that shows you your work orders, shows you your dashboard, both online, live, or if you have those places in your facility where you don't have good internet access. Cloud-based CMMS, a full browser use from anywhere. Now, if you're in slow mode, you're doing this from home. If you're busy, you're doing it from wherever you're at that time. Can you imagine, you know, back in the days, like I've been in the cloud CMMS software since its infancy. It was so hard to convince people to trust software that's in the cloud. Not only is it safe and secure, it's reliable, and look at where we're at now. Can you imagine if we didn't have access? And some of you may not have access to your CMMS when you're working from your home, and that's not a good place to be right now. It's also good cloud for like learning software, so your training resources, communication tools like Zoom and so forth. It's great to have those abilities. Mobility, just having the access to your software wherever you're at. Pull up those work orders, close those work orders, barcode scan, take pictures, watch videos. Identifying your essential, non-essential, or even work from home classification of your users. So, like I built a little custom field COVID-19 class. So you see that guy Eugene Porter, the first row there. Eugene is susceptible, at risk, cannot come into the plant. So he's classified work from home. So, you know, versus others are essential, non-essential. If you're adding a person to a work order, wouldn't it be nice to know this right in there when you're in that picker looking at your users, your staff, your team, to add to a work order, to know this information? It can be very, very helpful. Intelligent routing and notification. The solid workflow, escalation, notification. We are less face-to-face. Social distancing, distribution of our staff over different shifts, different parts of the buildings, working from home, whatever it may be. You have to take advantage of the abilities of a quality CMMS system to route properly. So, for example, in this screen here, if a work order gets created that is a COVID-19 related work order, or maybe just a safety related work order in general, have the system, when that work order gets created or that request gets created and there's a tag on it that says COVID-19 or safety or whatever it may be, make sure that automatically you associate your safety officer or your COVID-19 response team member to that work order so they get tagged to it. They will receive a notification. It'll show up in their mobile device. They'll receive an email. So take advantage of these intelligent routing, notification, workflow, escalation type capabilities of your software because it can really streamline what people are doing. That's really important when we are less face-to-face with one another because you're not going to be able to just track that person down on the plant floor or in their office. So these types of tools can really help. Again, communicate and document. So take that time to add those special safety instructions, safety documentation, associate videos. Like if there is people are having to wear additional PPE, what's the correct way to don a mask? I mean, we all know how to do it now, but we didn't all. You had to, having videos. There's a plethora of videos of how to do that, or whatever procedures and policies you need to have your team do. Make sure you document those, have them associated as a step in your PM. Use the dashboard to keep your team informed. Make sure your drop-down lists reflect COVID-19 related work as well, as we talked about earlier, because eventually you're going to have to report on that. Don't waste the time, especially if you're in that slow thing right now. I personally have learned, I play music, and I've learned how to play the fiddle, and I'm working on a children's book. It's more information you probably needed to know, but it's just representative of the extra time that we have as humans because we just can't do as much stuff. You can do the same thing to better your operations in your plant, better you as a maintenance professional. Is your CMMS going to support you like we've been talking about today? If not, take a look. Take on things like total productive maintenance. I'm a big fan of TPM and maybe more specifically autonomous maintenance, which is sort of a subset, one of the pillars. If this is not familiar to you, just Google total productive maintenance. Watch some videos on it and think about, would that be right for my plant? Think about a barcoding initiative, or study the Internet of Things and how that might benefit your facility. There's some great professional organizations, the Society of Maintenance and Reliability Professionals, smrp.org, and there's other great ones that you can join, all kinds of wonderful resources to better you as a maintenance professional and ultimately better your organization. So use this time to your advantage. The midterm, the thaw, and we're clearly starting to move towards this thaw. I've been studying a lot of manufacturing metrics about utilization, both with our clients and more broadly published information, and I'm really starting to see some positive signs that things, I don't know what we'll ever call normal, and the concept of normal will vary from factory to factory, industry to industry, country to country, but I'm seeing those signs, and I hope you are too. This is going to pass. This thaw is coming, and it's going to bring a new normal. Everybody on the globe is affected. What you do, how you handle this, how you take advantage of this is going to echo when this thing passes. You need to optimize your CMMS to reflect this new era. It's not going to go back to the way things were. The same way security in airports are not going to ever go back to the old days. So what we're learning, what we're having to do on the fly, or if you're slow and you're starting to think about new policies and procedures, it's going to be around for a while. You're also going to have to explain, what did you do during this pandemic? Eventually, we're going to look back. You're going to have to explain budget anomalies, work orders that didn't get done, and so forth. So having that information at your fingertips. And if you are in that slow group, are you ready to start up? Can you let your CMMS help you? So let's go through some of these examples. Midterm thaw. Optimize your CMMS. As I was saying before, what we used to take for granted, like it used to annoy us at first going through an airport after 9/11, take your shoes off and pull your computer out and do all those things. It's all become completely normal. Well, the same thing for maybe PP&E policies, for sanitization, you name it, depending upon how you're affected. Your PMs, your corrective maintenance, your job safety assessments, they're all going to probably have a bit of a new flavor to them. You're going to have to document that. They're going to have to be included in how you do it. And in some cases, you're going to have to sign off that you're following some of these procedures, digitally sign off. Let your CMMS help you in that process. What did you do during this? If you were slow, did you chip away at your backlog? If you were busy, how do you explain you couldn't get to any of your backlog? I mean, we all know you're busy, but it's really helpful to be able to pull up a summary of all of those completed work orders that you got done or those that you couldn't get done because of COVID-19 and the pandemic. Good reporting from that work orders area of your system can help answer those questions. Look at the analytics and the reporting. A workforce overview. Can you show what you did? Can you show what your team did? Can you break it out by technician, contractor, by the types of work orders? Slice and dice it however you need to do so you can help answer those questions. I mean, it's great from an analytics standpoint to see what we've been doing to help us optimize and to shift people around while we're in the thick of things. But also as we get to that thaw, you're going to have some reporting to show what you did. What's the floor status? Where downtime and broken out by assets and so forth. So there's a plethora of analytics and reporting in CMMS that can help you answer those questions. Plant startups. Your CMMS system can help manage and organize those procedures because often cases, your maintenance team will be tasked with getting these assets, these production lines, these buildings ready to start up. Bottom left-hand corner of the screen is a list of our safety programs. And again, it can be any type of program. For example, a contractor checklist or plant startup, or maybe you have specific startup checklists for specific product lines, production lines, and so forth. Have all those documents in the system for how you're going to manage these startups. And tie them. You can tie them into a PM or a corrective maintenance work order that gets associated to the appropriate staff members. Again, make sure you turn on your PMs. If you've turned them off, turn them back on. As far as plant startups go, you want to get that restart right. Cold starts can obviously create headaches and risks if not done correctly. And you can document all this. And I'm not here to teach you on a plant startup. I'm not qualified to do that. I am here to tell you that you can have all this stuff managed in your CMMS system. Run those tests. Stagger staged startups. Move to a full start. Thinking lean, you got to be ready to minimize asset restart issues and malfunctions. You want to avoid waste and rework. You're already slow. If you're in a startup, you're in a suspended mode, you're moving to startup, try to nail it. Try to start up avoiding problems. Same thing with the team. Have your staff organize and mobilize within of course, the social distancing parameters, and try to avoid unnecessary overtime because you weren't organized in your startup process. You can build those routines out, and you can test this stuff as you're working towards the thaw, and be ready. So getting into a recap and the long term here, which is really the new normal. So I would like to put up a second poll question. It's on your screen right now. How would you assess your maintenance operations in the future? What is the impact of COVID-19 to your maintenance operations? The first option, if you could take some time here to answer this question, please. Won't change how we run maintenance operations at all. Hasn't had any impact at all on us. Will result in minor changes to our maintenance operations. Third option, will result in fairly extensive changes in the near term, but eventually we'll go back to older ways once this pandemic is past. And the final option is our maintenance operations team has changed forever. So if I could get you all to answer that. All right, give everybody another couple seconds here. All right, I'm going to move to the next slide. Okay, interesting. 60% are saying that it's going to result in minor changes, and 16% at the bottom there, it's going to be changed forever. Interesting. Okay, well, thank you for filling out that survey. So we are in the new normal. We are going to be in the new normal. The information I just read there, some of you, the new normal is not a whole lot different from the old normal, which I'm happy to say you'll have the least amount of disruption, which is great. Make sure your CMMS is supporting you in this pandemic. And it's not just this pandemic. It's whatever the next major curveball is. There's always curveballs. I've got enough gray hair for me to think back to things like 9/11 and the recession of 2008, 2009, and the obviously there's tragedies of the human variety, but there's also tragedies of the economic and the market and manufacturing in general for all of those. Curveballs are a fact of life. It's how well you respond to them. And CMMS, for your maintenance operation aspect of your organization, is something that can help you in those tougher times. So if it's not supporting you, you really need to take a look at your computerized maintenance management software and make sure it is helping you. Think and be lean. Thinking and being lean is always fashionable. I mean, some of you, and we had a decent percentage of us on this call today that are busier than ever. Well, being busier than ever, it is so important to be lean and efficient. Lean operations in general for manufacturers is a wonderful way to operate as long as it's done intelligently, effectively, and supported with the right technology. So when you're super busy, if your software is right there lockstep with what you're doing, it makes your job and your life and your organization everything better. If it's tough times and it's slow and you're forced to do more with less people, less supplies, whatever it may be, lean does the same benefit. It's always fashionable in good times and in bad. Concept of working from anywhere. Software that runs in the cloud, mobile devices where you can have pretty much the same information that you can have on your regular desktop browser environment, right at your fingertips, the ability to interact with your team, whether you're at your home, whether you're at a conference, someday when we actually can go to these things again, or someday when you're on vacation and you're forced to take a look at one of those critical work orders to help your team, or back at your factory, back at your plant, and you're running from one building to another, and to be able to pull up those work orders or be able to close that work, whatever you have to do. That concept of working from anywhere with mobility in the cloud, that's not changing. That is not going away. If you've not yet embraced using a mobile device with your maintenance team, this is now the time to really seriously consider doing that. And the last one on my list right here is don't waste this time. As I said earlier, we're all in the same situation, the whole planet. All of your competitors are all in the same situation. What you do with this time, how you get by if you're super busy, or how you take advantage of the time if you have it to improve, is going to benefit you. You will outperform your competition when you come to the end, when this thaws here and we get to this new normal and you're firing on all cylinders and you are ready to rock and roll because you took advantage of this time. You will be in a better place. We've got all kinds of COVID-19 related resources on our website. You'll be able to download those. This will be available in the downloads that are here that are benefiting if you're thinking about CMMS and the impact of COVID-19. In general, there's resources you can draw on from Dude Solutions. Those links will be available to you. One final poll question. Basically, if you'd like to receive some more information, if you just you can read the questions on the screen here, but I'll leave this up for a couple minutes here, for a couple moments here, as we're wrapping this up. While you're answering this poll question, if you have additional questions, the Q&A window, if you go ahead and put some of those questions in there, Adrian's going to be reading some of those, and we'll answer as many as we can with the remaining time that we have. So if you could take a moment to answer the last poll. And I think before I wrap up my part, Dude Solutions is a family of people that are dedicated to creating amazing software, CMMS software, for the benefit of our clients, so that our customers, so that they can optimize and improve their maintenance operations and improve their profitability. We are feeling it like everybody else. We're all working from home and figuring out this whole new way. We're probably a little better off than most because we are a cloud-based software company. So we were pretty geared up to do that. But, we feel for all of you out there, and we're here for you. It was an honor to speak to you today. If you'd like to stick around for the question and answers, please do so. If not, thank you very much for joining the webinar today. And with that, I will hand it back over to Adrian.
Great. Thank you very much for that excellent presentation. And while we're doing questions, I'd like to ask our audience to please take a moment and fill out the feedback form, which is on the left side of the lower toolbar. The first question is, we are using this downtime to rework some of our lines and review PM procedures. Do you have any best practices around managing non-traditional maintenance projects?
Yes, that's a good question. And one of the things that we're seeing, and I think this probably is more appropriate for the people that are slow. They have time, so you have the time, and you're looking at, you can chip away at the standard PM procedures that you do, and a lot of times those are the ones you just couldn't get to because you couldn't get the time from production, you were too busy, whatever it may be in more normal times. Now you have the time. You might be maybe thinking about, say, more bigger projects. You're working with engineering to how can we improve this production line, or how can we improve the effectiveness of an asset so it doesn't have, say, repeating downtime. First off, if there are specialized PM routines that you need to do, you can build those out as a standard PM. It's just not probably going to be a regularly scheduled PM, but maybe something that's more of a one-off, more like a project. And a good CMMS system is going to be able to give you the ability to make specialized PMs, or even develop a whole project, which is a combination of work orders that might draw on different trades and disciplines, and maybe be more interactive with the engineering group if you're actually retooling, if you're really looking at how a line is created.
Okay, the second question is, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go for it.
Okay. Yeah. Question is, since we have not had consistent maintenance staff coverage in the plant, we are struggling with tapping into the experts that are not physically around. What advice do you have? Yeah,
that's exactly why cloud software, mobile device, and even tools like Zoom, I'm sure you're all using some form of that where you can see people face-to-face, and phones. But, I mentioned it earlier in the presentation, but if there is that expert who is getting into the plant but is just not necessarily available to everybody all the time, somebody ought to take a video of what they're doing. If it's something that gets asked a lot, take a video of that person performing that task, upload it to your CMMS, and have it be right there associated to that appropriate PM or a corrective maintenance work order, whatever it may be, so that a picture's worth 1,000 words, a video's worth 1,000,000 words. So you gotta find these little tricks and tips to harness those experts' abilities, even if and so that expertise is available even if they're not in the building. That really ties in nicely with the aging workforce as well. Those people, those experts, and they typically are the people that have been around the plant the longest and develop that expertise. You need to capture their knowledge anywhere. They're going to retire someday, or they're going to take a different job someday. You need to grab what they're doing. So get it into your PMs, get it in, and then it's available. I don't care if you're looking at the mobile device, you're looking at your CMMS from home, or you're looking at it from your desk inside the factory.
Okay, the next question, we do not use mobile devices in our facility because in the past management had concerns. What is your advice for management and staff to adopt?
Yeah, I'm going to guess that after we get through this thaw and we get to this new normal, management, and that used to be really commonplace when I've been doing mobile CMMS for decades now, and it was super unpopular. Oh, they're just going to play games. You know, we don't like them to have their phones when they're on shift. It is that tool, that mobile device is just as valuable as the majority of tools that they physically are touching the assets with. Because of everything we've been talking about before, the step-by-step instructions, the ability to take a picture, to be able to watch a video. I mean, there's just so many reasons for that. If you are running into resistance about using mobility in your factory floor, that's where you really just have to rely on your software vendor here, Dude Solutions, to hear about those benefits and those values, to see that in action. It's really hard to argue against that. Same thing with cloud software. It's really hard. How can you argue against cloud software right now if you didn't have access to your software, or right now some of you maybe don't have access to your CMMS when you're at home? Just think how much more valuable that would be if you could. So that resistance, I'm going to guess, is going to start to erode. If not, that's an excellent question to challenge, say if you're talking to Dude Solutions sales, for what they can arm you with, or how can they communicate with your management around that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank our speaker, Paula Chance, and our sponsor, Dude Solutions. As a reminder, if you are registered as a group, please add the names and emails of all in attendance on the exit survey. On behalf of Industry Week, have a productive remainder of the day.